Oh, he should, but he shouldn't. What's up, guys? I'm Hunter here, and here we're going to do a quick little breakdown and discussion on whether or not Ryomen Sukuna, the king of curses, not just the strongest sorcerer in history, but the strongest sorcerer of all time, should win. Should he take the victory royale? Should we give the man his due credit, his due respect, break shonen conventions, do everything in our power to fundamentally change the system, and give Ryomen Sukuna, presumably our main antagonist and possibly our final boss, a victory? A decisive one, where we end JJK, where he stands alone on a mountain of bodies, laughing before the head of Yuji Itadori, which he had taken off long before. We have a decent turn to talk about, so let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Heading me, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, Ryomen Sukuna is the strongest. Let's just lay that bare. He is. There's no denying it. I'm sorry. Even with Yuji Itadori's recent ascension, even with his direct comparisons to the Buddha figure, aka the Enlightened One, aka the peak, the pinnacle, in a lot of different variations of stories, even with Ryomen Sukuna's very heavy comparisons now to a Sun Wukong before the end of Journey to the West and his enlightenment, and the many different interesting analyses and interpretations I've seen of Sukuna from that perspective. Sukuna being a sort of twisted variation of the Monkey King, down to his mentality, to some of his abilities, to the possibility of his missing cursed tool and what its abilities were. All that, it sounds real nice. But even still, Yuji Itadori is not stronger than Ryomen Sukuna. Unless it's revealed in chapter 266 that Yuji Itadori in his domain is seemingly all-powerful and Ryomen Sukuna can't cast domain back, Ryomen Sukuna is the strongest character in this entire manga. The only, and I mean the only debate, is with a character who he slaughtered nearly a year ago. That's it. No one else has had the nerve, the gall, the insane delusions to argue that anyone else could compete except for this one guy who himself admits that Sukuna wasn't able to give it his all. Who himself admits that he thinks that, maybe, just maybe, even without the 10 shadows, I couldn't reach Broski. He may be built like that for real. Gojo admitted that nearly a year ago. But he's still arguably the only one in contention for possibly being stronger through stats or something like that, even though he lost verbatim to a weaker, imperfect variation of Sukuna. Regardless, Ryomen Sukuna is the strongest character, and for that reason alone, he should win. Jujutsu Kaisen is a very complicated series in terms of matchups. Don't get me wrong. There are characters who are drastically weaker than some characters in a lot of aspects who will dominate or defeat or do something devious to other characters. Ryu Ishigori has the highest curse energy output in the entire verse, meaning he's arguably the most durable, and he arguably has the hardest hits just verbatim in terms of hits or blasts. He just has it. It's in his kit. However, he lost to Yuta Okkotsu, someone who is definitively weaker than him and less durable than him. Of course, there are external circumstances, but he lost to Yuta Okkotsu, and he would lose to Yuta Okkotsu 10 times out of 10. Even as his biggest rewriter this side of Mississippi, I will readily admit that. For another, once again, a case for Ryu Ishigori, he loses to Maki. And to Toji. Why? Speed. Plus a Duraneg. They do that to a lot of characters in the verse, but essentially the point I'm trying to get across, there are definitely times within the world of JJK where matchups do matter drastically, heavily, to the point where they sway entire battles in spite of stat gaps. I agree, Sukuna is not one of them. He isn't, at least in my opinion. Even though he's literally been matchup checked by Yuji Itadori, who's been literally built fundamentally to defeat him. Y'all, Yuji's been fighting this man for not nearly a year, but he's getting pretty darn close. He's getting pretty darn close to it being nearly a year, and then also just a flat-out year. Remember, it's not just been Yuji, it's been literally the entire remainder of the verse. From characters who we have not seen since the prequel series. Characters who haven't even gotten name drop since the prequel series. And Sukuna's still standing. Why? Because he's the strongest. And regardless of matchup checks, all that. Well, actually, no. Irregardless. Regardless is meaning without. So irregardless would just mean guarded. So like technically, not irregardless, but regardless of the many different people who have thrown themselves against him, Ryomen Sukuna has still remained standing tall, standing proud. And here's the thing. He's been restored. After completing 2 blank flashes, the King of Curses finally regains reverse curse technique. The only thing he was missing was his curse technique. But even then, you can see this clearly. This Super Awakened Yuji is no match for a Sukuna who actually has all 4 of his arms and his heart back. It's as simple as that. It's not a contest. Why? Because he's the strongest. And anyone who could compete with him is either in half, now fused back together and laid out, in the case of Goda, and or continuing, just not there. Maki should be fine for the most part, but she's not here. Yuji is here, but he shouldn't be able to do anything. Once again, Ryomen Sukuna is the strongest, so on that principle alone, he shall win because he transcends literally. I don't want to say he transcends matchups, but at least in JJK, he transcends matchups. He does. He just does. Why? Because his stats are all S tier. They're all like S plus tier. He's in a Z tier, essentially. He's basically Brawl Meta Knight, where there just is no debate. He is the strongest. Is his kit the best? Arguably not. But still, he's the strongest. So he should win on that principle alone. Because he is the strongest, he transcends matchups, and Yuji Tadori, really, even after all of his power-ups and awakening and in his new perspective on the world, it shouldn't matter. Because Ryomen Sukuna is still that guy. 100 million billion %. I agree with that. That's the common consensus. Ryomen Sukuna is the strongest. He's proven he's the strongest. He just got restored to a state where he should be at his basic apex with all 4 arms back, RCT output back at any second now, his curse technique, and considering its reveal that he can cast domain expansions infinitely, despite having the same amount of curse energy as Yuta Okotsu, he should have no issues. He should be unstoppable. Undeniably. However, with that being the case, with Ryomen Sukuna being the strongest, definitively, hands down, and me believing that he should win based on that, I still have to say, I don't think he should win. Mainly because it would... How do I put this? The main reason I'm hesitant to let Sukuna win is because of what it would say. Notably, JJK is a shonen manga, but it's also just a story. And stories typically have meaning behind them. Stories typically have a message they want to send to you, especially by the end of a story. Incomplete stories can have very vague messages, or multiple messages all at once. I look at Hunter x Hunter as a story that is very incomplete, at least from my understanding of it, and there are a bunch of different messages in individual arcs. But the overarching theme of the narrative and the final message that Togashi would want to leave with us is unknown, because we haven't finished it. We don't know. Same thing for something like Freyrin, same thing for something like Four Knights of the Apocalypse, same thing for something like Chainsaw Man. There's so many unfinished narratives that we will not know. But I think we all know what message the narrative of JJK would be pushing if Ryomen Sukuna were to win. Especially considering 265 is an expose on Sukuna's morality. And by proxy, the morality that would be espoused as the superior one by the end, if Ryomen Sukuna were to win. Yeah, I don't feel anything. I understand the words you're saying, but they don't stir any emotion. Just like how you accepted this old dump of a town. I think, oh, so that's the case. But so what? Ryomen Sukuna does not care about human life. I was interested. Even then, he doesn't really care that much. Simple as that. And also, he does believe in absolute sense of oneself. Personally, I do agree with aspects of Sukuna's mentality. I do believe that you have to look out for number one, because number one is all you got. Even more than your own flesh and blood, your own family, or your closest friends, only you know what you are. Only you know what your values are. Only you know your every individual thought, and even then, your subconscious runs wild. So, in that sense, where I do agree with Sukuna on the general scale of worry about yourself, make sure you put yourself first, and do what you will in one life that you have and enjoy it, even though Sukuna has 2 lives, yeah, I agree with that. But on the macro sense, Sukuna is a character who disregards the value of human life, barely identifies humanity as something worth valuing, and overall doesn't send the most positive message, or even, I don't even want to say a neutral message by the end. There are some narratives that end with neutral messages. Heck, some whole video games I know about, the entire thing is that they have neutral endings where you kind of get the best of both worlds. And I do think that opening or ending is available to JJK, where both Yuji and Sukuna die. And then technically it is a double loss. And I do, ironically enough, I hate to say it, I see Gege hinting at it loosely by Yuji saying, human beings aren't tools. They don't come with a predetermined role. Good guys, bad guys, I don't know which is truly human. So Gege is definitely laying the seeds and the groundwork for a quote-unquote neutral ending. I was going to say for my Undertale fans out there, but I don't know, for my Undertale fans, my Shin Megami Tensei fans, for insert neutral ending. But even still, I think that is still more safe and sound than an abject Sukuna victory. Because the message Sukuna sends is just not... It's not good. And then here's the thing, right? Maybe Gege just wants to send that message. Maybe that's the case. Maybe it truly is a story about the absolution of oneself entirely. And ultimately, that's the story that Gege wants to end out on. That would be massive, crazy. And I'll admit, I see the upsides of Sukuna winning. It would make perfect narrative sense with how well he's established to be the strongest. And also, meta-narratively, it would be not necessarily the biggest thing, but it would be massive in terms of opening the door for other types of shonen to end that way. Where, oh no, everyone gets a big bad dark ending. Because Ryomen Sukuna won. Proceeded to slaughter everybody. Because Yuji Itadori opened his mouth and yapped a little bit too hard at him. Yeah, it's there. And the shock value is there. So I can see why people want it. But just like, what else does it do besides shock you? What does the message that human life has no value unless you decide to let it have value, and even then you can discard that value immediately, and also slaughter, eat whatever you want? And I don't know, maybe just because I personally don't align with hedonism fully, I only align with the aspects of like love thyself, respect thyself, and do as you wish for the most part, as long as it doesn't come into contact or I'm with immediate other human beings. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's why I don't see that as a message that Gege wants to push, Gege's editor will want to push, or Shonen Jump will want to push. Maybe that's it. But I feel like even the people who want Sukuna to win, I've never necessarily seen, oh, it's because he's right, or he has a morally good stance. Because he doesn't. That's like the whole point. And like, here's the thing. I'm not even saying it's a bad thing that he does. In fact, it makes perfect sense that he does. And I think the story would be worse off if he had a softer perspective or a kinder perspective. I think it would be worse. I think that Ryomen Sukuna just being a terrible person, but a person nonetheless, is one of the biggest points about JJK. The spectrum of humanity. And I do think the idealistic battle between Yuji and Sukuna is also one of the biggest focal points of JJK. And thusly, its clash is inevitable. But while both characters have their beliefs, I think Yuji's beliefs are a better way to end the story on. Yuji's real enlightenment versus Sukuna's false enlightenment, and Yuji overcoming Sukuna with the efforts of all the many people he valued, all stacked behind him, from Satoru Gojo to Choso to Maki to Yuta to Akari to Miguel to LaRue to Ui to Mei to like all these different characters coming together to strike down the man who stands low at the mountain. I think that's more narratively satisfying than man at the peak of the mountain slaughters everybody who tries to climb up it. Like, do y'all see what I mean? And here's the thing. You know, I think a lot of people don't like the idea that Senjutsu Showdown will be rendered either worthless or irrelevant just based on how it's going to end. It's going to end with the defeat of Sukuna. Isn't that boring? Isn't that... What? So the Senjutsu Showdown was just fighting Sukuna and then they beat him and that's it? Yeah. But imagine how anticlimactic it would be. and how much of a waste it would feel like if Ryomen Sukuna just won. Like, that's it. You know, he just won. That's it. Story's over. Everyone else is dead. By Sukuna's hands. BD dubs. That's it. Yeah, all that time you invested in theorizing about Gojo, how he was going to do, Yuta, how he was going to do, Maki, how she was going to do, Hikari, what he was going to do, Itadori, what they were going to do. Like, all that, worthless. Sukuna just slaughtered them all. GG's. It's not, that's the thing, and here's the thing that I've come to accept. It's not horrid, and it's not impossible. It isn't. Those two things aren't. And the story has laid the groundwork well enough through scaling, through characters' reactions to Sukuna, everything. The groundwork has been laid, and it's been laid clear. It is, you have to put on blinders to not see the groundwork that Gege's done. Legitimately, we dedicated an entire character to glazing the man. Using X-ray vision to analyze Ryomen Sukuna, what Kashimo saw was perfection. Like we spent a whole bunch of time really properly slopping off this dude. All teeth. With that being the case, I think his defeat is almost necessary to have the best of most worlds. I'm willing to concede Yuji Todori or Megumi Fushiguro. Personally, I'm fine with either of them dying by the end of the narrative and taking Sukuna with him. Perfectly fine. I love Yuji. You can get rid of him if need be. Once again, I'd say that leans more towards a neutral ending. For Megumi, you can get rid of him. Once again, a more neutral ending. But still, I think Ryomen Sukuna just has to go. Because the sour taste, I don't know. And once again, there are Sukuna fans out there and people who just want to see him win, just for the shock value of it, of a shonen main villain winning, that I do get. And I'll be happy with that. But it feels so against what the narrative has been building to. This story, as much as it's felt like Jujutsu Kaisen, is ultimately not his tale. He's an antagonist. He has something to be overcome. The story is the story of Yuji Todori on his path to enlightenment. On his path to understanding, to getting a better understanding of humanity, better understanding of himself, his relations to the world, and his relation to Sukuna, yes. But Sukuna's not the main character. He never was. He never will be. So him winning would undermine the tale of Yuji Todori. The suffering of Yuji Todori. The tragedy. Everything that Yuji's done, it would undermine it. And personally, I'm just not the biggest fan of that. So he should win. Absolutely. The narrative's done enough. Clay's them enough. Given him enough. He has every single tool to win. It would only make sense for his victory to be assured. But I think the narrative's gone out of its way. Enough. I think Yuji Todori has developed enough. I think Ryomen Sukuna has been weakened enough. I think enough has happened in the narrative, plus the overarching goal of the narrative, plus the meta-narrative messaging that Gege would want to send out at the end of it. I feel like all of that coalesces and comes together into this beautiful, horrifying mix, where ultimately Ryomen Sukuna and victory cannot be the same thing. You cannot have this man win. Because it would undermine the lives and values of many different characters in the narrative. It would be a shock value twist in our real world, but also contradict everything the narrative has been building to, with Yuji Todori as the main character. And ultimately, I think would even somewhat go against Sukuna. Because he's a character who kind of always sought death in one way, shape, and or form, and sought love. And I think ultimately him getting it by the hands of Yuji Todori, his own son, his own nephew, I think it's more appropriate than Ryomen Sukuna simply winning and walking away. Or winning and fighting the merger. Or something along those lines. So, if you were to ask me, Sukuna should win. But he shouldn't. Don't let Ryomen Sukuna win. Because he's a very, very, very twisted man. However, that's what I think. Please what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you guys agree with me that ultimately, yeah, sure, he should win because he's the strongest and all, but like, meta-narratively, in-narratively, character-wise, main antagonist-wise, main villain-wise, how you write his story-wise, he should not win because he's a very, very bad man and kind of wrong and it would send a weird message? Or do you disagree with me and say, hey, the historical impact of a main villain winning in such a popular Shonen Jump series would be legendary, it would be epic, and ultimately You're reading the story wrong, pencil. Sure, you may think that X, Y, and Z is the case with how these characters are meant to interact and believe and move and pop and chuck and jive, but actually the narrative has been building to something completely different in Sukuna's favor, not just for his power, but for his character and his motivations and morals. Please let me know all that and more in the comment section down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave Victory Royale for Fortnite. Leave Victory Royale in the comment section down below. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do happen to have a Patreon below where you can support me for as low as $1 no monthly. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. And so now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks will include the live reaction to the very next chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, and free variations of all my videos. And if you come into a $5 Patreon or a $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. Also, I do have a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below where you can drop 5 beans for a short video, 25 beans for a long video, or any beans at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. Now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That on the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to even thank you to our $3 members, Zena, Greyhound, Astro, Eternal Flame, NMA, Real Rare, G Prosper, Red Wolf 4765, and Paris Arnold. I'd like to leave another big ol' thank you to our $5 patrons, Sean, Sammy, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin Encarnacion, Josh Brown, and A+A. And I'd like to give a great big thank you to our $7 members, Autumn Mornings Lazo, Fine, and That Guy. And I'd like to give a great big thank you to our $10 members, Robbie Uchiha, Jay Warrior, and Akid's Void. And I'd like to give big, hefty, juicy thank yous to our $10 patrons, Panda Goat, Michael Williamson, Metal Solid Crisis, Joaquin Munoz, and Idem Okami. And I'd like to give the biggest, juiciest, meatiest, sloppiest, and heftiest thank you of them all to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.